In a futuristic metropolis, a young pink-haired girl is pursued by an unknown threat. In the midst of her escape, she receives a communication from someone interested in knowing if she has achieved her goal of obtaining the key. She confirms success. However, her escape is interrupted by the appearance of robots armed with turrets that inflict a wound on her leg. Despite this, the girl deploys an ability that renders her invisible, allowing her to elude her assailants. When she reaches the exit, she hands the key to a small robot anxiously awaiting her. At that moment, one of the pursuing robots emerges, but its attempt to attack is thwarted by an imposing mecha, an ally of the pink-haired girl. This opportunity gives the girl a chance to escape, and so she runs fast. However, the robot launches rockets that hit her, severely injuring her and causing her to fall from the bridge. Meanwhile, the protagonist, Shu Aoma, is on his way to school on the train. Afterwards, his best friend catches up with him to greet him, and during the conversation, Shu notices the presence of numerous soldiers in the streets. The girl informs him that, according to news reports, there had been a terrorist attack the night before, prompting a massive mobilization of military forces into the city center. Later, Shu arrives at high school and recalls how a decade ago, a virus unleashed a pandemic in the city of Japan, causing extensive damage to the country. As a result, collaboration with other nations was imperative to overcome the crisis, leaving Japan today in a position of dependence on these countries to keep it afloat. After class, Shu makes his way to what appears to be an abandoned house, located in a forbidden area of the city. Upon arrival, he encounters the pink-haired girl and is surprised by her presence. The girl, noticing Shu, is frightened, which causes her robot to attack him, knocking him to the ground and causing Shu's food to fall. At this incident, the girl tries to hide from Shu. Suddenly, he notices her obvious hunger and offers her some of his food. As they share the food, Shu tries to strike up a conversation with the girl, recognizing her as a singer from a famous band. At this point, the girl reveals that her name is Inori and asks Shu to take her robot to a specific place in the city. While she is showing him a craft made of yarn, a group of soldiers appears. Upon noticing the situation, the girl tries to escape but is stopped and brutally beaten by the officers. Shu tries to intervene, asking them to stop, but the soldiers claim that she is a criminal responsible for the alleged terrorist attack. When the military threatens to shoot Shu, he cowardly chooses to hide. The military takes Inori away, leaving Shu feeling helpless for not being able to defend her. At that moment, the robot shows Shu a map of the place the girl asked him to take him to, and Shu decides to take the robot to that destination. Elsewhere, Inori is interrogated to reveal the location of the key. When she refuses, the military deploys its forces to locate it. Meanwhile, Shu makes his way to the location indicated by the robot, but is attacked by thieves who try to snatch the robot from him. Despite being beaten, Shu refuses to give in, at which point Guy, a blonde boy accompanied by his henchmen, appears. Guy easily subdues the robbers, who retreat. Later, a girl takes the robot from Shu, and Guy asks him about the girl who was with the robot. Without warning, there is a loud explosion, and one of the wounded informs Guy of the approaching military. We then see the military soldiers commit cruel acts, murdering those in their path. Meanwhile, a mecha approaches to attack them, and after being ambushed, Guy instructs Shu to protect the key and search for Inori to rescue her. At the time, Inori is held captive in a trailer, overturned due to a missile falling from a mecha. After freeing herself, Inori is stopped by a group of mecha about to shoot her. At that moment, Shu appears and jumps in to save her. The key activates, revealing a powerful sword inside Inori. With this weapon, Shu easily parries the mecha's missiles and, with a single blow, completely annihilates her enemies. Witnessing the power of the weapon, the military becomes concerned and decides to send more robots to attack Shu. While Shu fights back as best he can, he manages to destroy some enemy missiles, but the resulting explosion hurls him into a building. Observing the situation, Guy decides to intervene and knocks down a nearby building, immobilizing the enemy mecha. Shu manages to destroy it using the sword and then rushes to Inori's aid. The sword returns inside the girl after its use, and with Guy's help, they manage to escape from the place. In another instance, Guy's allied mecha, led by a young girl, is brutally attacked by another enemy robot. This mecha is commanded by the son of a high-ranking military commander, who introduces himself as Yan to the leaders of the squadron charged with capturing Inori. He states his intention to join the search squad, making it clear that he will act as he pleases due to his father's leadership. Despite the reluctance of the squad leaders, the military is forced to accept his participation. At a later stage, Shu finds himself with Guy and Inori on top of a building, where Guy reprimands Inori for not fulfilling her mission to bring him the key. Upon witnessing the situation, Shu defends her, arguing that she did her best. However, Guy points out that Inori's mistake was giving Shu the power of the key. At that point, it is revealed that the key is called Void Genome and is a powerful biological weapon originally intended to be used by Guy. He explains that the key he gave to Shu is one of 3 in existence, and that the power it activated in Shu is that of a king, allowing a person's inner power to be materialized into a weapon, as in Inori's case with the Great Sword. After this revelation, Guy forces Shu to join them in confronting the military. Subsequently, one of the henchmen informs Guy that the military led by Yan has taken over a building where he is holding more than 100 people hostage. In response to this news, Guy calls the entire rebellion to a meeting and they devise a plan to attack the building and free the hostages. In the course of the mission, Shu and Inori enter the building through the ventilation system. Arriving at the area where the hostages are being held, they witness the military cruelly beating and mistreating the innocent civilians. These soldiers, who are from a foreign force, abuse the citizens, claiming that they are sick with the virus, which allows them to kill them without facing reprisals. At the exact moment when Yan and the military execute the abductees, the rebellion launches an attack, launching hundreds of missiles. Diverting Yan's attention by having him chase a truck, they manage to ambush the commander of the operation, threatening him with many rockets. Observing the situation, the commander threatens Guy and the rebellion with detonating atomic bombs placed under the city. He therefore demands to speak directly to the leader of the rebellion. Guy appears before him, and the commander demands his surrender and the revelation of the stolen key parade. However, Guy flatly refuses, prompting the commander to threaten him with hundreds of laser weapons. At that moment, Shu prepares for the next phase of the plan. Using the sword, he attacks Yan in order to activate the power of the key and materialize his inner weapon, a giant cannon. This cannon comes into play just as the commander attacks Guy, generating a powerful force field that repels the laser beams. This causes the lasers to deflect and destroy the military's mechs and weapons, successfully annihilating the enemy forces and rescuing the hostages. Afterwards, Guy praises Shu for his outstanding work and cordially asks him to join the rebellion, to which Shu enthusiastically agrees. The next day, during his lessons, Shu reflects on the satisfaction of having rescued Inori. Suddenly, the teacher announces to the class the arrival of a new student, who turns out to be Inori. Upon noticing this, Shu is astonished. Then Shu's classmates respond in kind, as she is also an idol of great renown. They begin to ask her numerous questions, to the point where all the attention of the class is focused on her, except for Shu, who continues to question why she is present. Observing this, Shu's best friend, called Yihiro, decides to intervene in order to put an end to the annoyance towards her. Later, during physical education class, one of Shu's friends, who calls himself Inori's biggest fan, comments to Shu about the beauty of the girl in the sports uniform. Shu responds by expressing that she even looks almost unreal. Hearing this, the boy gets upset and insults Shu. Later, upon returning home, Shu feels uncomfortable about the situation. As he is about to enter his house, Inori appears and opens the door with her hand. Upon witnessing this, Shu is shocked and begins to question Inori about her presence. However, she continues on her way, ignoring him. Shu follows her, but stumbles over the girl's robot companion. Upon reaching the living room, watch as Inori calmly changes. Shu asks her again why she is in his house, to which she replies that the rebellion allowed her to stay there, indicating that she will now live with him. In another instance, the senior leaders of the military forces hold a meeting to determine how they will deal with the rebellion. It is revealed that Haruka, Shu's mother, is the assistant to one of the leaders. At the meeting, she made the decision to send a new genetically modified squadron to confront the rebellion. After this, back at Shu's residence, he is troubled as he does not know how to approach the issue of Inori's arrival with his mother. At this point, Inori realizes Shu's concern and assures him that she knows her mother's schedule and has everything planned. Regretfully, the doorbell rings and Shu goes to open the door to find Yihiro. He tells Shu that he noticed she seemed sad after school, so he thought it would be a good idea to rent a film and spend some time together. At that moment, Inori arrives and informs Shu that she received an important message, asking him to accompany her. Shu tells his best friend to postpone the film for another day and leaves, promising to explain the idol's presence at his house later. After this, Shu and Inori head to meet Guy, where Shu questions Guy about why he sent Inori to live with him. Guy explains that it was a protective measure, as one of those kidnapped during the battle turned out to be a student at Shu's school. If this person recognizes him, there is a possibility that he will report him to the military forces. Because of this risk, Guy entrusts them with the task of discovering the identity of the witness. Shu argues that there are thousands of students at his school, making it difficult to identify the culprit. Guy replies that they will be able to find out if Shu uses the power of the key to manifest his inner ability. He possesses the ability to see the abilities of others, and during the battle he was able to observe the inner powers of everyone present. Then, the next day, Shu and Inori come up with a plan to discover each other's abilities. However, when Shu tries to use the power of the key on a girl, it has no effect, and he ends up accidentally touching her breast. Several of his classmates passing by witness the situation, leading to teasing and harassment towards Shu. Later, he and Inori begin to come up with theories as to why the key did not work. They come to the conclusion that it is necessary to make eye contact with the person to release their inner ability. This is a challenge for Shu, who is quite shy, but after receiving words of encouragement from Inori, he decides to try again. The next day, Shu follows Inori's advice and tries again with another partner. This time, he succeeds in manifesting his partner's inner power, materializing a futuristic motorbike. Unfortunately, however, it was not the person they were looking for. Despite continuing the search one after the other, they are unsuccessful. Fatigue takes hold of Shu, and Inori explains to him that they are looking for the power of someone materialized in a pair of scissors, known as voids. She reveals that these objects are a representation of each individual's fears and complexes. Upon hearing this, Shu asks Inori why her void is a sword. But before she can answer, the girl whose chest Shu accidentally touched appears. She starts chasing Shu, but Yahiro intervenes and saves them, helping them hide in the school gym. After a conversation with his friend, Shu discovers that Yahiro is the person they are looking for, registering Yahiro's fear of scissors. Upon confronting him, Yahiro goes berserk and attacks Shu, who manages to stop him by manifesting his own inner power, a pair of scissors, as a weapon. Upon witnessing this, Inori decides to take drastic measures and end Yahiro's life, but Shu stops her. He explains that he doesn't want to lose his best friend. Although Inori doesn't understand, as her mission was to eliminate the person who saw them, Shu manages to talk some sense into her. After a quiet conversation with Yahiro, they both promise to keep it a secret and tell Guy that the situation is working out. Afterwards, Shu and Inori return home by train, and Inori expresses to Shu her desire to continue living with him to learn more about friendship. In an unexpected twist, the train mysteriously stops, and several armed soldiers appear in front of Shu. The doors open, and Yahiro, in an act of betrayal, pushes Shu, who is arrested by the military. After these events, Inori wants to stop the train to help Shu, but an agent of the rebellion prevents her, arguing that Guy asked her not to interfere. As a result, Shu is taken in a police truck to a prison in the military barracks. At the barracks, he is interrogated by a senior military commander named Makoto, who inquires about his relationship with Guy, as they were seen together on the day of the battle. Shu refuses to provide him with information, and Makoto decides to take him to another building to show him something. On the way, they notice increased security at the barracks due to a threat from Guy, who announced that they would rescue his partner. Makoto explains to Shu Yahiro's activity on the day of the battle, and the reasons behind his betrayal. Yahiro was involved in the drug trade for money, and by offering a reward for any member of the rebellion, he decided to turn Shu in. Then, in a room with people infected by the apocalyptic virus, Yahiro reveals that one of them is his younger brother and explains that the treatment is expensive. Makoto provides more information about the lost Christmas virus that occurred 10 years ago, and how the military managed to end the riots and control the virus. Makoto tries to persuade Shu that the rebellion is the wrong party, but Shu is adamant due to the cruelty he witnesses from the military. Finally, Makoto reveals that the rebellion plans to attack to free an ally named Kenji, arrested for a suspected terrorist attack. He hands a transmitter to Shu, threatening to capture Inori if he does not cooperate, and tells him that he can inform them of Guy's position when he finds him. After these events, Inori is saddened that she could not help Shu and wonders what she could do to save him. In a different scene, Shu is taken to a room to talk to his lawyer, who turns out to be Guy. With the help of Tsugumi, a rebellion hacker, they disable all the surveillance devices in the room. Guy informs Shu that they will be rescuing a fellow member of the rebellion that night and need his help. He explains that they will cause a distraction during a blackout, at which point Shu must find Kenji and use his void to escape. Although Shu tries to resist, the rebellion's plan is set in motion with a blackout and explosives to distract the military. As the rebels bombard the building with missiles, Guy continues to persuade Shu to participate in the rescue. Inori communicates with Shu telling him that she is coming to rescue him, which infuriates Guy, as these were not the orders he gave. Shu decides to escape to meet Inori and is intercepted by a mecha on the way, but is saved by the rebellion mecha led by Ayas, a mecha expert. She reprimands him for making Inori disobey Guy's orders and warns him that if anything happens to Guy, she will kill him herself. Shu continues trying to get out of the building and runs into Guy and the boy they were rescuing. Seeing Kenji, Shu jumps on him and uses the power of the key to manifest his inner void, a gun with the power to manipulate gravity. With it, he easily defeats one of the mecha, but they are surrounded by more robots. At that moment, Inori appears and Shu unleashes the full power of the gun, creating anti-gravity bubbles to reach her. After reaching Inori, he unleashes the powerful sword inside her, and uses it to epically annihilate the military mecha. Afterwards, they leave the place with Inori and Kenji and meet Guy, who invites him back to join the rebellion. Despite not completely trusting him, Shu accepts. As they make their way to the rebellion's lair, Shu remembers the pen Makoto gave him, which allows him to alert the military when he is with Guy. He is hesitant to use it, though, as he is still unsure of the rebellion's true intentions. They arrive at a large library where they meet Shibungi, a high-ranking officer in the rebellion, who reports that Inori and Kenji are healthy. Guy decides to issue a communique, announcing that Shu will now be part of the group and will be at the center of operations due to his skill with the key. The next mission is in 3 days, and Ayas is tasked with training Shu. As the training begins, Shu notices that Ayas has the pen that Makoto gave him. Although he asks for it back, she proposes a test. If Shu manages to overcome a series of challenges in a week, she will return the pen to him. During the tests, Shu meets Ayas practicing with a gun, and Inori teaches him how to shoot. Despite Inori's skill, an awkward moment between them leads to Ayas calling him a pervert. Makoto talks about a weapon called leukocyte, the main target of the rebellion in the next mission. Shu meets with other members of the rebellion, Arugo and Kaio, and discovers that Kaio is a big fan of Guy. Shu is surprised by the trust people have in Guy, despite their perception of him as a selfish person. After a tiring day of training, Shu hears Inori singing and decides to visit her. During the conversation, he asks Inori why she joined the rebellion, although she reveals that it was Guy's idea, who told her to say that she belonged to him. Shu suggests that they leave the rebellion together. Inori refuses, as the rebellion saved her, and Shu is humiliated to see her enter a room with Guy. He leaves feeling bad, but bumps into Ayas, who realizes what Shu witnessed. Ayas encourages him to do his best in the next day's test to discover the truth, as he will officially become a member of the group. In the test, Shu must reach a target protected by Ayas and his mecha, confronting her to win. He uses the key to manifest his power, a wand that creates a force field that immobilizes Ayas' mecha. Shu passes the test and officially becomes a member of the rebellion. However, the joy is dampened when everyone is informed that the military attacked Guy using the leukocyte weapon, destroying part of the city. It is discovered that the weapon in question is a powerful satellite orbiting over the whole of Japan, from which they can fire extremely powerful energy beams. At this point, Guy manages to establish communication with the group, claiming that he is unharmed, but unfortunately the rest of the team is dead, along with the destruction of all supplies. Faced with this situation, Guy decides to launch a new attack against the military forces. Afterwards, they are shown setting up camp in the area of the attack, from where they plan the assault on the base of operations that controls the leukocyte. The main objective is to take control of the weapon's power core, but this is protected by a force field. Touching this field would activate a security protocol that would lock down the weapon. Therefore, the use of Shu's power and Kenji's gravity vacuum becomes necessary. Guy warns that this mission carries a high risk, with the likelihood that several of them will not survive. At this revelation, Shu proposes to attempt the mission alone, but his companions object, as they have all made the decision to participate in the mission. This disagreement leaves Shu feeling embarrassed, and he decides to leave the site. He then ponders whether he should press the pen to contact Makoto. At that moment, Inori appears and informs him that she has a plan, urging him to follow her directions. After this, in a scene transition, Makoto is seen talking to the military commander. The commander informs him that he is aware that the rebellion is planning to attack later that day, so Yan and his team are preparing for the impending attack. Elsewhere, Guy struggles to recover from the recent attack that left him seriously injured. During his reflection, he questions the morality of his actions and wonders if everything he has done is justified. He also reveals that after Leukocyte's devastating attack, Kaio, his partner, was seriously injured. Faced with the prospect of her inevitable death, Guy makes the difficult decision to end her suffering. At that moment, Shu appears unexpectedly, overhearing Guy's revelations. Shu confronts Guy, accusing him of selfishness in allowing others to sacrifice themselves for him, including Inori. Guy's laughter provokes Shu's anger, who attacks him. During the confrontation, Guy explains that his goal is to be a source of hope for others and does not seek to dominate others. Upon hearing this, Shu reconsiders his feelings and reconciles with Guy. After these events, the attack on the base of operations is launched, creating a diversion skillfully executed by Ias and other members of the rebellion. This maneuver manages to divert the attention of much of the military and Yan's forces. In this scenario, Inori, Guy, Kenji, and Shu manage to infiltrate the base, successfully reaching the control core. As they prepare to activate Kenji's gravity weapon, he is confronted by Yan, who attacks them. Guy decides to deal with him while Shu goes ahead with the plan. However, at a critical moment, Yan fires uncontrollably, causing severe damage to the core and knocking the satellite out of orbit towards Tokyo at high speed. Subsequently, Shu and his companions manage to escape from the base. At that moment, Guy conceives an idea and asks Shu for the pen that Makoto gave him, as Guy was always aware of his true purpose. At that very moment, Makoto appears, and Guy makes a proposal to save the city in exchange for Makoto's elimination of Shu's entire criminal record. Later, Guy details his plan to Shu, revealing that the feather is not simply a communication device, but activates another leukocyte satellite. This second satellite, upon receiving the signal from the plume, fires at the location of the plume. Guy intends to use this method to destroy the satellite heading towards Earth. However, the person who is in the path of the sacrificing satellite will be the one to die. At this point, Guy volunteers to carry out the sacrifice. Witnessing this situation, Shu feels helpless, unable to do anything to stop it. At that moment, someone who appears to be Inori appears, offering her emptiness to Shu to destroy the satellite. Shu uses the weapon, which turns out to be a powerful cannon, to launch an energy beam and destroy the satellite. After this, Makoto fulfills his promise to expunge Shu's criminal record, allowing him to return to high school. Despite this, Shu faces judgment from his classmates because of his arrest by the military. However, he is defended by Arisa, the school president, who manages to persuade everyone to believe that Shu was simply interrogated. At this news, his classmates begin to ask him various questions, and Shu thanks Arisa for helping to clarify the situation. Later, Shu meets with her classmates to catch up on classes. During the conversation, his best friend, Hare, informs him that Yahiro has not returned to school since his arrest, which puzzles Shu. Intrigued, he asks Inori if she has any information about his friend. Inori, questioning why he cares after Yahiro's betrayal, creates a tense moment. At that instant, Haruka arrives home, surprised to see Inori there. Shu tries to explain Inori's presence, but Haruka decides to defuse the situation by sending Shu for a cake, then calmly discusses the situation with Inori over dinner. Afterwards, Guy meets with his team, and Shibungi informs him that the rebellion's resources have dwindled considerably after Leukocyte's attack. Faced with this situation, Guy makes the decision to find an ally for the rebellion who can provide the necessary resources. In another line, we again see Arisa, who belongs to a prominent, wealthy family in the city. This family plans to organize a party for the purpose of finding a non-governmental organization with which to collaborate. Simultaneously, it is shown how the military leaders catch an attack on the party, considering it a potential risk to their interests. The celebration takes place on a ship on the high seas, and Guy and Shu infiltrate with the aim of talking to Arisa's father to get his support for the rebellion. However, upon arriving at the party, Shu discovers that his mother is also present. Deciding to hide to avoid being seen by her, he crosses paths with Arisa, who immediately recognizes him and begins to follow him to talk. However, Guy intervenes and, after exchanging a few words, manages to get Arisa's attention. Meanwhile, the military prepares missiles to attack the ship. At that moment, Shu is informed by his companions that the missiles are about to destroy the ship. Shu decides to report the threat to Guy, who is meeting with Arisa's father. Together they create a plan in which they will use Arisa's vacuum to stop the missiles. Guy tricks Arisa, taking her to the outside of the ship, where Shu uses the power of the key to manifest Arisa's void, an orb capable of generating energy shields. Thanks to this intervention, all missiles sent by the military are stopped. Arisa's father, impressed by Shu's skill, agrees to become a collaborator of the rebellion. What appeared to be a planned military attack turns out to be a plan hatched by Guy, who also inform the military about the party on the ship, all with the aim of achieving an alliance, and Guy falls in love with Arisa, facilitating the plan. Later, there is a scene in which Shu's mother receives an envelope containing a photograph of Inori with Shu and herself when they were young. However, it seems that Shu has no memory of this moment, and Inori has no memory of it either. After this, Shu prepares for a school trip with the academy, and upon telling her mother, she starts joking about not wanting to be alone. She then suggests that she take advantage of the trip to visit her father. Meanwhile, it is revealed that it is all a plan by Guy, who sent Shu, Inori, and other classmates to infiltrate a military base. Guy places them in a mansion provided by one of his associates. In this context, Sauda, a key partner for the mission, with the necessary emptiness to infiltrate the enemy base, begins to pester Shu by insinuating that he and Inori are a couple because they live together. Despite Shu's attempts to explain the situation, Sauda interrupts by suggesting that they all go to the beach, to which they agree. Arriving at the beach, Shu sets up an umbrella on the sand and reflects on how uncomfortable it is to have to share a ride with Sauda, as he is quite annoying and disrespectful. However, his attention is diverted by the sight of Inori on the beach, wearing a beautiful swimsuit. Upon observing her, Shu is captivated by her presence. Hare, who has feelings for Shu, notices this and decides to seduce him, inviting him to swim together. Subsequently, we are introduced to how Shibungi and others discreetly watch over the young people from afar, making sure that the mission goes smoothly. Afterwards, the girls return to the mansion, noticing Shu and Sauda's absence. Kanon informs them that Shu decided to go ahead because he had some unfinished business. At that moment, Sauda tries to take pictures on the beach and notices a hat flying in front of him. The hat belongs to Ais, who was passing by with Tsugumi. Sauda is impressed by Ais's beauty and, after thanking her, the girls continue on their way. Afterwards, Shu finds himself in a cemetery, revealing that his father passed away, and that place used to be his home before. He leaves some flowers on the grave, and at that moment Guy appears, initiating a conversation with the young man. Guy shares more information about Shu's father, mentioning that he met him when he was a professor at a prominent university and one of the pioneers in fighting the apocalyptic virus. Shu confesses that he doesn't know much about his father, as he avoids asking Haruka to avoid hurting her, and only remembers that he passed away 10 years ago on a Christmas. After this, Guy reveals that he is there to show him something related to the mission and takes him to a cliff overlooking what appears to be the military's hidden base. The mission is to infiltrate and steal a stone linked to the apocalyptic virus, requiring both Shu's power and his partner's emptiness. Faced with the difficulty of convincing Sauda to help him, Guy suggests using Inori as a lure, as Sauda is a big fan of the gang to which the girl belongs. Although Shu is annoyed, Guy insists that it is necessary for the success of the mission. In another context, the girls enjoy a bath, and Hare is happy to be on holiday with Shu. At that moment, Inori joins the bath, and the girls are surprised to notice the uniqueness of Inori's skin. Kanon, intrigued, begins to explore Inori's skin, while Hare experiences jealousy at the thought of Shu's feelings for Inori. Meanwhile, Shu is in the living room with Sauda, and Sauda asks Shu if there really isn't anything going on between him and Inori. Shu assures him that there isn't, and Sauda mentions that if that's the case, he'll try to date her. Shu sees this as an opportunity to accomplish the mission, so he asks Inori to agree to go out with Sauda to take him to the mission site. Inori accepts, and is then seen walking with Sauda under the stars. At one point they decide to sit down to rest, and Sauda takes the opportunity to show her a video he made for Inori. Shu, hidden, watches all this. After watching the video, Sauda tries to express his feelings for Inori. Jealous, Shu decides to intervene in a clumsy way, using his power to bring out his void while trying to confess that he is in love with Inori. At that moment, the members of the rebellion, who are watching, come out of hiding and mock Shu for his actions and for bringing out the void prematurely. They decide to start the mission immediately and head for a secret entrance to the base. Using Sauda's void, which is a camera capable of opening secret entrances, they gain entry. Simultaneously, a mysterious man arrives at the base, kills a guard and enters using a card, which triggers alarms and more security mechanisms. Shu and the others continue to advance, deactivating the mechanisms with the void. Finally, they reach the room where the object they were looking for was supposed to be, only to discover that the stone is no longer there. Guy is furious and they decide to leave. Later, it is revealed that the stone was stolen by the mystery man, who turns out to be Kato, one of the military's top commanders. After this, Kato goes to Shu's father's grave to pay his respects. Sauda later regains consciousness and finds himself with Shu, who reproaches him for saying that he should have told him that he was in love with Inori. This triggers an argument between the two, but in the end they manage to resolve their differences and end up as friends. The boys conclude their mission on the island and return home by boat. Next, we see Yahiro, who has fled with his brother and seems to be taking refuge in a church. However, at that moment, Makoto and several soldiers appear on the scene, forcing Yahiro to escape from there. Afterwards, Kanon and Hare, who are at school, wonder about Yahiro as his disappearance was abrupt. While playing a video game, Shu appears and accidentally drops a teapot in the room. Hare becomes nervous as he has been thinking about Shu a lot lately. Observing this, Kanon asks Shu for a favor to go and buy some things together with Hare. However, Kanon intends for the two of them to spend time together, so they take the underground to the shopping place. At that moment, Hare considers how he might confess his love to Shu. Suddenly, the train stops, causing Hare to fall on Shu's chest. Embarrassed, the girl is about to confess her feelings to him. Just then, a hooded Yahiro runs into the train and, stumbling, drops some medicine. Shu and Hare are shocked, and Shu quickly recognizes Yahiro. He decides to confront him, but Yahiro jokes about the closeness between Hare and Shu. At this, Shu asks Hare to go alone to do the so-called shopping, as he has business to discuss with Yahiro. Yahiro takes Shu to his hideout, where he has his brother, and tells him how they managed to escape on the day of the attack on the military base. In parallel, we see Makoto watching Shu and Yahiro, planning to capture them. Later, Yahiro continues the conversation with Shu and takes the opportunity to ask him for some money, as he needs it to eat and continue escaping with his brother. However, Shu decides to help him in another way and calls Iase to ask him to send a team to pick them up. Yahiro is surprised that Shu wants to help him after what he did to him. Shu assures him that he is doing it for his little brother and prepares to leave the building. However, they are attacked by Makoto's military, and the boys try to flee, but there seems to be no escape. Shu decides to use Yahiro's vacuum to confront them, but when he tries to take it out, the boy refuses, claiming that Shu was the one who ratted them out. Upon hearing this, Shu is furious and claims that he wouldn't do that, and that the only traitor is Yahiro. He also yells at him that he promised to get his brother out of there and plans to keep his promise. It is then that Yahiro agrees to give him his void. And after pulling out his gun, the brother, seeing this, thinks he attacked Yahiro and falls off the stretcher. Suddenly, Yan appears aboard his mecha and starts attacking Shu with hooks that follow the energy of the voids. Shu manages to destroy one, but Yan sends many more, and suddenly, one of the hooks hits Yahiro's brother. Shu and Yan are shocked, and Makoto tells him that the boy's disease seems to emanate the same energy as the voids. Suddenly, the virus begins to spread to Yan's mecha, causing severe damage to the robot and the soldier. The robot is controlled by the disease and destroys the other mecha in the area. It then moves towards Shu and the other boy's body. Shu prepares to defend himself, but the robot passes by and grabs Yahiro's body. Seeing this, Shu jumps to defend his friend. As he is about to attack, a portal opens, similar to the one that appears when he pulls the voids out of people. Thus, Shu is transported to what appears to be the memories of Yahiro's brother Jun. Jun appears there and shows a memory of his childhood with Yahiro to the protagonist. Afterwards, he asks him to end his life, as the disease makes him suffer a lot, and he is tired of giving his brother trouble. Shu decides to do so, as the disease has already taken hold of him, and he is about to kill Yahiro. When he returns to the robot, it rides and then shuts down. Subsequently, the protagonist leaves the building, and Yahiro regains consciousness. He asks Shu about Jun, and Shu simply replies that he is dead and that he is the one who killed him. Afterwards, there is a scene change in which Shu encounters members of the rebellion carrying out a mission. At that point, Guy instructs Shu to attack, which requires the use of Inori's void. However, as he attempts to extract the void, he recalls the situation with Yahiro and Jun, which seems to have left its after effects on him. Seemingly traumatized, Shu fails to use his power and instead escapes, leading to the rebellion having to abandon the mission. After that episode, there is a scene in which Shu has a dream in which a girl with pink hair, similar to Inori, finds herself in the middle of a fire. In the dream, she asks Shu to promise to make her sister happy. However, it turns out to be just a dream, as Shu wakes up in his usual hiding place. Checking his phone, he notices several missed calls and messages from the rebellion. At that moment, Hare arrives with some breakfast and asks Shu why he is hiding there, and why he doesn't want to go home. Shu evades the questions and suddenly receives a call that he chooses to ignore. The call is from Inori, who is worried about him and informs Guy about the situation. However, Guy is busy in a meeting with Eris's family to get information about the stone he failed to steal. He learns that the stone will soon be transported by the military by plane. In addition, it is revealed that Kato took the stone to the military and was arrested after doing so. The next day, Shu returns to school, but when he meets his classmates, memories of the recent trauma resurface and affect him deeply. This causes him to retreat back to his usual place. At this point, Ice finds him and begins to reprimand him for his attitude, trying to persuade him to return to normality. However, Guy suddenly appears and tells Ice that his efforts are futile. Faced with no options, Guy threatens Shu with a gun, declaring that if he does not participate in the mission to retrieve the stone, he will eliminate him. Despite the threats, Shu refuses and expresses that he never desired the power of the key. Guy then warns him that he will kill him to extract its power, shooting into the air in an attempt to scare him and force his participation in the mission. Seeing that Shu continues to resist even under the threat of death, Guy and Ice withdraw, making it clear to Shu that he is excluded from the rebellion. After these events, Shu returns home, where he finds Inori waiting for him. He tries to apologize for ignoring her calls, but Inori comes over to give him a song she had composed to cheer him up. As the girl approaches to give him the song, Shu experiences another flashback that causes him to react violently. He hits Inori's hand and destroys the song, referring to her as a monster. This act causes Inori to start crying, and she says goodbye to Shu before leaving the house. As he leaves, Shu notices that Inori had also prepared onigiri for him, although they were a little undercooked. These gestures cause Shu to be unable to hold back tears. After these events, the scene shows the military team making preparations to transport the stone. Yan, designated to carry it, is waiting to meet his father, the general, who will deliver the stone to him. While guarding the lift, it opens unexpectedly, and Yan unintentionally observes his father kissing his secretary. We then witness how the rebels organize and prepare for the next attack to steal the stone. During these preparations, Guy receives treatment and is in the company of Inori, who asks him if he thinks she is a monster. Guy advises her not to pay attention to Shu's words and asks her if she also fell in love with him, causing Inori to reflect on her feelings. Afterwards, Kato is reprimanded by Shu's mother for stealing the stone. During the conversation, Kato reveals information about Shu, mentioning his connection to the power of the key and his involvement in the rebellion. This is all for the purpose of announcing to Shu's mother about Inori and questioning the trust she should place in her. Back with the rebellion, they begin the assault on the plane carrying the stone. The rebels take up their strategic positions to carry out the mission. Simultaneously, the general arrives at a room where the stone is located. Meanwhile, the rebels stealthily advance towards the plane. However, Makoto was aware of the rebels' planned attack and ordered the military to inject themselves with a vaccine as a preventive measure. Despite this, Guy and his companions manage to reach the plane and, using an explosive, open the cockpit, only to discover that there are no pilots. Suddenly, they realize that they have been caught in a trap when a sign appears confirming this. At that moment, Makoto activates a device that causes the stone, originally located in the conference room, to start emanating a strange purple energy. After this, Shu, who is accompanied by Hare, gets very close to the girl and asks her to allow him to be near her. He mentions that he knows she is attracted to him. Upon hearing this, Hare reacts with a slap in the face to Shu, reprimanding him for not trying to use her as a substitute for Inori. She also confesses to him that she witnessed everything Shu did to Yahiro and his brother, but despite that, she tried to cheer him up, and he treated her badly. As Hare cries, Shu tries to apologize to her, but suddenly, the sky begins to darken. This is because the stone was actually a key that activated a tower, transmitting waves that caused the apocalyptic virus to spread. Many people, including Guy, who was on board the plane inside the tower's radio, become infected. It turns out that this was all a plan by Kendo, who ordered Makoto to act. The rebels try to escape while being attacked by the military. However, Guy is severely affected by the virus, and Inori tries to help him. Later, the commander of the military is at the place where the key was activated, and everyone begins to transform due to the virus. At that moment, Yun arrives at his mecha to save his father, but upon discovering him with his lover, he decides to kill him. As a result, Kendo takes over as the new general, and when a soldier attacks Makoto, Shu's mother takes the opportunity to escape. Meanwhile, Tsugami contacts Shu and informs him that the plan has failed, indicating that Guy and Inori are still at the airport. In this situation, Shu decides to enlist the help of his colleagues to rescue the boys. He intends to use their vacuums to reach them, but Yahiro objects, arguing that he only plans to use them as tools. To the confusion of the other boys, Shu decides to explain to them about the power of the key, and to ask for Hare's help. In doing so, Shu extracts the void from hair, which turns out to be bandages with apparent healing properties. After apologizing for having previously used the other's voids, Shu explains the reason for his request for help, and the companions agree to accompany him. In a scene transition, Kato uses the key to open a door and enters with Makoto. Elsewhere, Guy and Inori, who had met Haruka, head to a tower from which they plan to broadcast a song to stop the virus. Meanwhile, the rest of the rebels struggle to stop the military. Subsequently, Inori begins to sing her song, causing the virus to disappear from the people. At that moment, Shu and his companions arrive at the airport and are attacked. Shu uses Erisa's void to create a shield that protects the vehicle they are in. After overcoming the first barrier, the military destroy part of the bridge, but with the help of Hair's void, they manage to repair it and continue advancing. After defeating some mecha, they finally reach Inori. However, they are surprised by Yan, who attacks on board a mecha, overturning the vehicle and trapping them. Yahiro hands his void to Shu, with which he defeats Yan and reaches Inori. Just as he appears to be safe, a portal opens behind Inori, and from it emerges a blonde boy known as Yu, who apparently also possesses the power of the key. Yu uses Inori's vacuum to attack Shu, but Guy gets in the way, taking the hit for him. Notably, the moment Yu takes Inori away, the apocalyptic virus is activated again, this time with renewed strength. Guy instructs Shu to follow Yu, as Yu plans to sacrifice Inori to revive a person called Mana. Shu jumps into the portal just before it closes and, during the transport, Yu induces a trance in Shu, causing him to remember aspects of his past. Shu recalls moments from his childhood with Mana, his sister. They observe a boy floating in the water, turning out to be a young guy, whom they save and care for during the summer, becoming close friends. These memories, however, were blocked in Shu's memory. Back in the present, Shu finds himself in a hall with large stairs, where Kato reveals to him that Inori is just a body created by them to house Mana's memory. Mana was the first to touch the apocalyptic stone, becoming infected with the virus. According to Kato, Mana was selected by an alien race to create a new species after destroying humanity. It is revealed that Mana, deeply in love with Shu, chose him as her mate. However, Shu rejects her, unleashing the apocalyptic virus and destroying Mana's body. Now, Yu, the alien envoy, plans to use Inori to house Mana's soul and create a new world. Despite Shu's attempts to stop them, he is easily held back by Yu. At that moment, Iase and Guy arrive. The latter survived and helped Iase and Makoto reach the ship. They try to stop Yu, but when Iase is defeated, Guy reveals to Shu the truth about the day the virus began and unlocks his traumatic memories. This unleashes the full power of the king in Shu, allowing him to extract voids without rendering the person unconscious. Shu extracts the void from Guy and, together with him, they fight Yu and the crystals to get closer to Inori. Guy uses a weapon that reveals Inori's sword, allowing Shu to free Inori's body. Guy advances towards the vessel containing Mana's soul to destroy it and end the virus, but is severely injured. In an act of sacrifice, Guy orders Shu to use the sword to pierce him and destroy Mana. Shu, initially reluctant, finally does so, killing Guy and Mana's soul. The place begins to crumble, and Shu and Inori escape, but Shu weeps for the loss of Guy. After the virus-affected area was quarantined by the military, people were forbidden to leave the area. The students of the academy decided to stay, as most of them lived on the outskirts of the city. Iase, one of the students, tries to pick up a shoe from the floor, but ends up falling off her chair. Two individuals approach her to offer help, but Iase, who does not usually accept help, refuses. Despite her resistance, they persist and harass Iase. At that moment, Shu and Inori pass by and, witnessing the situation, Shu intervenes to defend Iase. The harassers intimidate Shu, but Tsugumi appears and delivers a flying kick to one of the boys, taking him along with Shu in the process. As more people look on, the bullies decide to retreat. Shu and the girls try to help Iase, but he refuses and asks them to leave. On the way, Tsugumi comments to Shu about Iase's affected state since Guy's death. Shu reveals that after the battle, the rebellion broke up, and Iase, Inori, and Tsugumi were integrated among the students for shelter. With the lack of teachers at the academy, the president and Shu formed a group to take charge of the shelter. The kids are discouraged due to acts of violence and vandalism, so Sauta comes up with the idea of holding a school festival to raise spirits. After some discussion, they all come to the conclusion that it is a good idea. After that, Shu strikes up a conversation with Yahiro, who shows him his void and hands it over to him. Yahiro mentions that after the battle, Shu can extract the voids without the person fainting. Shu expressly says that he hopes not to have to use the key's power anymore, to which Yahiro replies that he must remain vigilant, as the military is still a threat. Afterwards, the two head to the area where the festival is being prepared. On the way, they meet Tsugumi, who is working in his class's themed cafe. Tsugumi introduces them to Kanon, who is wearing puppy dog ears. Shu then heads to Inori, as she and Sauda are busy arranging details for a concert that will be the main event of the festival. After that, Yun is seen infiltrating among the students wearing a uniform. On his way, he encounters Tsugumi, who is carrying boxes full of costumes. Tsugumi accidentally bumps into Yun, causing Yun to adopt an arrogant attitude. However, Tsugumi gets him to carry the boxes as punishment, and then offers him a caramel apple as a reward. Later, Yun informs Makoto that most of the members of the rebellion are at the school, and assigns him the task of keeping an eye on them. Then, the long-awaited day of the student festival arrives, and Tsugumi does his best to make sure Ais has a good time. Meanwhile, a group of thugs who have been committing robberies since the beginning of the quarantine are shown. These young men are furious about the festival organized by the academy students. Two of the thugs arrive with a blind truck and a mecha, provided by Makoto with the intention of attacking the school. Picking up on the Ais and Tsugumi situation, the girls have an argument because Tsugumi disconnected Ais from the mecha when the latter was helping Guy. Ais reproaches her that maybe if she hadn't done that, Guy would still be alive. After this fight, Tsugumi withdraws, leaving Ais alone. At that moment, Shu arrives, who tries to comfort her. However, the thugs start attacking the festival, shooting and destroying everything in their path. Shu rushes to put a salvo on Ais, but she falls off her chair. Despite this, Shu rushes to help her, and she expresses her desire to fight. Despite her disability, she wants to be useful. At this moment, Shu's power activates, drawing out Ais's void, which turns out to be robotic legs. With these legs, Ais can fly and possesses great strength. She uses this new power to save Hare from being run over by the armored car, deflecting it and causing it to crash. The thugs are captured with the help of the robot controlled by Tsugumi. Shu then uses Inori's vacuum with Ais's help to destroy the enemy mecha, managing to defeat all the thugs. After the calmness returned, the students continued to enjoy the festival, finally arriving at the moment of Inori's concert. At that moment, Ais thanks Shu for allowing him to struggle with the emptiness, expressing that he feels much better because of it. However, while they are talking, communications are restored and an official government communique appears on the screens. It is presented by General Kato, who survived the tower attack. He informs all the students that the government has approved a new containment measure, the construction of high walls that completely enclose the center of Tokyo, the area where the students are located and where the virus initially spread. After these events, all students are called to a meeting to discuss how to deal with the situation of the new walls closing off the center of Tokyo. However, fear grips the students, triggering widespread panic. Tension rises as the students begin to blame Arisa, who tries to calm them down by assuring them that her father will help them out of the situation. However, confidence in her has waned considerably, and they propose to elect a new student government president. During the meeting, the student government representatives distribute virus vaccines to the students. Yahiro comments that Arisa is still under attack on social media, and Tsugumi shares his opinion that the president is not fulfilling her leadership role properly. This statement provokes an argument between Sauda, who defends Arisa, and Tsugumi. In parallel, the thugs who upset Ais plan their revenge, showing that they have obtained a firearm that they are willing to use if necessary. Upon returning to Tsugumi, she meets Inori for a conversation. She asks Inori if she feels lonely not having parents, to which Inori replies that she has never experienced that feeling, except when she was separated from Shu. Inori returns the question to Tsugumi, who shares that she has grown up alone since forever and is used to the feeling. However, she admits that she misses the other members of the rebellion. After expressing this, Tsugumi calls Shu, who was eavesdropping on the conversation. At that moment, Tsugumi hands Shu a device he found after the confrontation with the thugs. This device can measure the power level of people's voids. The boys start playing with the device, comparing the power between them. Shu decides to use the device to see Tsugumi's void level and mentions that he has never used his void. The girls start to tease Tsugumi, and Shu takes out his void. Meanwhile, Kato meets with Makoto to implement his plan to eliminate the members of the rebellion. He activates a new contingency measure that will reduce the quarantine area daily, and those near the edge will be killed by new mecha designed by the military. This cruel plan results in the deaths of hundreds of people near the wall, and the mecha gradually move towards the center, causing panic among the students when they hear the news. In addition, Makoto sends a message offering release from the quarantine area to those who hand over the members of the rebellion. At this announcement, Shu is deeply concerned. However, Hare reassures him that she will not hesitate to help him with his emptiness if something happens. The girl also encourages Shu to run for the new president of the academy, and he ponders whether it would be a good idea. At that moment, Tsugumi, who has recovered after the events surrounding his emptiness, joins the conversation. While talking, the students observe some bullies harassing a girl. They discover that members of the rebellion usually have a mark on their arm, and the thugs search the students for members of the rebellion. This situation alerts Shu, as Inori and Ayase could be in danger. Wasting no time, he decides to look for them, and finds Inori defending herself from some boys trying to touch her. Simultaneously, Ayase is captured by the group of thugs who had molested her earlier. Tsugumi arrives to rescue Ayase, but is also held by the bullies. The president calls the students to a meeting in the academy hall to address the situation. Arisa tries to calm the students, denying the rumors about the rebels, but the thugs show up to confirm the truth of the rumors. They present Ayase and Tsugumi as hostages, showing the tattoos on the girl's arms as proof. Despite the girl's resistance, the thugs pull a gun on Tsugumi. Seeing the situation, Shu decides to intervene to protect her friends. He approaches and stops the bullies, and the students obey him when they see Shu's incredible power. Shu confesses to being a member of the rebellion and warns that they will pay if they touch her friends. He then proposes an idea to resolve the conflict. Later, Shu, Ayase, and Tsugumi are taken to the edge of the wall and handed over to the military by one of the thugs. The thug asks to be released, but the military chooses to shoot Shu and the girls, and finally the thug. However, it turns out that it was all a hologram transmitted by Tsugumi's little robot. Shu implemented this plan using Tsugumi's vacuum, which can create holographic clones of anyone. He sent the clones to show the students that the military would not release them if they handed over the rebels. Despite this deception, one of the thugs tries to attack Shu with the gun, and Shu reacts by hitting him with another student's vacuum. Shu urges his fellow students to believe in them and promises to protect them with his power. Inspired by this demonstration, Yahiro proposes Shu as school president, and the students gladly accept. Shu thus becomes the new student president, and Yahiro suggests a way to better control the students by ranking them according to the power level of their voids, using the device Tsugumi found. However, this proposal goes against the philosophy of Shu, who wants all students to feel included. Although tests were previously conducted to find out all the students' gaps, the idea of ranking students seems tyrannical to Shu. He wants to maintain unity among the students, especially since the wall is getting closer and closer to the school, and he has been able to effectively maintain calm among them. Despite this, supplies and vaccines are in short supply, and Yahiro suggests that this is an important reason to begin the sorting plan. According to this proposal, the strongest and hardest workers could be prepared to face the military. Faced with this situation, Shu decides to consult his friends about what to do, and Inori encourages him to make the decision he thinks is best. Meanwhile, Ayase, Hare, and Tsugumi take a shower in the school baths. Hare expresses his discomfort that Shu has to make such an important decision alone. Ayase stresses that this is Shu's responsibility as president, and Tsugumi annoys Hare by suggesting that she should hurry up and confess her love to Shu. Afterwards, Sauda approaches Shu to express his displeasure with the system they want to implement. Shu confirms that he also dislikes the idea, and Sauda encourages him not to accept the ranking of the students. After an amusing scene in which the boys express their thoughts aloud, Shu turns to the rest of the student council to tell them of his decision. However, he discovers that they are counting the virus vaccines and concludes that there are not enough for all the students. At this point, Yahiro again urges Shu to implement the ranking, but Shu notices that Sauda is ranked in the lowest category. After being pressured by his peers, Shu finally agrees to the ranking method. While walking through the corridors, he encounters Sauda and a group of students who are at the bottom of the ranking. These students ask Shu to allow them to use their gaps to practice and be useful to the academy. Afterwards, Yun has a telephone conversation with Makoto. Makoto informs him that the students are about to run out of supplies and will soon be approaching the wall, so they need to be prepared. Yun suggests that the students are only young and should not be a cause for much fear. However, Makoto reproaches him for not shooting the suspected rebels who approached the wall the day before. He also warns her that if she does not follow orders, a rumor could spread. After the call, Makoto is seen playing a game of chess with Shibungi. Elsewhere, Shu is hiding in his usual shelter, and Hare tracks him down looking for him. Shu shares his sadness at not being able to adequately fulfill his role as president and meet everyone's expectations. Hare embraces him to comfort him and advises him to follow his heart. He tries to confess his love, but Kanon's call interrupts the moment. Kanon informs Shu that Sauda and another group of students has left the academy with their empties and are heading to a nearby hospital in search of vaccines. Shu arrives at the hospital to stop them, and the students express their desire to prove their usefulness to the school by getting vaccines. However, they are attacked by military helicopters, and Shu orders the students to hide in the buildings. While trying to distract the military, Hare begins to heal an injured girl. Sauda asks Hare to repair a nearby car to escape, but this alerts the enemy mecha. Shu runs to save Hare, and they are both injured by an explosion. Inori and the others arrive to help, attacking the helicopters while dodging missiles. Hare, badly wounded, uses her void to heal Shu before being hit by a gunshot and losing her void. Despite this, she manages to heal Shu completely before confessing her love to him and passing away. Shu, waking up and realizing the situation, embraces her friend, but she turns into crystal and disintegrates in his arms. Filled with sadness and rage, Shu takes Inori's sword and destroys the mechas one by one. When the others learn of Hare's death, they try to calm Shu down, but he ends up hitting Sauda and holding him responsible for the girl's death. Yahiro intervenes to calm Shu, who decides it is time to separate the weak from the strong. Argo and Ogumo infiltrate the quarantine zone from a helicopter hired by Eris's father. He plans to rescue his daughter and force her to marry a member of the government to eliminate the quarantine. Upon landing, Argo encounters a group of Shu students who are stealing medicine from students at another academy. Recognizing the symbol of rebellion on Argo's uniform, the students take him to Shu, who now acts as a tyrant and supreme leader of the school. Shu has ranked the students according to the power of their voids and is recruiting students from other schools with powerful voids, establishing an empire in what was once the school. Argo arrives to meet Shu, who forces a girl to give him her voids to rank her, and informs him that she is there to take Ice. Shu decides to take her to an important place at the time, an abandoned ship that sank during the tragedy. On the ship, there are military supplies that Shu has been collecting using the lower-ranking members. Although they appear to be infected by the virus, if they successfully complete their work, they are rewarded with vaccines. However, a problem arises when one of the oxygen pumps supplying air to Sauda, trapped at the bottom of the ship, begins to fail. Seeing the situation, Shu decides that they must help Sauda and, if he wants to get out, he must do it himself. Argo, unwilling to stand idle, runs to the nearby emergency pump. Shu stops him by threatening him with a scythe, explaining that they are planning an escape from the quarantine zone and need all available resources. He chides Argo that, due to the scarcity of resources, discrimination is necessary. He also reveals that he cannot hand over Erisa, as her emptiness is crucial to the escape. In the face of Argo's refusal, Shu decides to imprison him. Sauda manages to get off the ship on his own, and Argo is locked in a cell. A Tsugumi robot arrives to inform Argo about the events, revealing that, after Hare's death, Shu has set up a void-based kingdom, and the people, out of fear, decide to obey him. Meanwhile, Yu, apparently still alive, collects the rings he had prepared to marry Mana. Meanwhile, Commander Kato, who has been overseeing the events at the academy, informs Makoto and Shu's mother that everything is going according to plan. He notes that Shu has managed to gather numerous gaps in the school. The former president then goes to talk to Argo, who was looking for her, but is intercepted by a student who tries to overtake her. Ice reacts by threatening him with a knife. Meanwhile, Shu is standing next to Inori, who tries to comfort him. During the conversation, Inori acts strangely, as if she is not herself. However, Shu's attention is diverted when his companions alert him to Argo's escape from his cell. Tsugumi, cooperating with the escape, provided Argo with the key, and neutralized Ice to prevent her from alerting the others. Argo tries to reach Erisa to escape with her, but Shu intercepts him. A melee ensues, in which Argo easily takes Shu down. At that moment, Yahiro appears threatening Argo with a gun, but some beams fall due to a vacuum used by Shu. They hit a girl, and Shu, jumping to save her, causes her void to be destroyed, causing her to turn into crystal and die. Shu understands that if a person's void is destroyed, they die with it. Erisa, witnessing the situation, escapes. Shu argues with Yahiro, who had told him that Hare died from a genetic weapon, when in fact it was due to the destruction of his void. With this revelation, the idea of a realm of voids becomes extremely dangerous. Despite this, Yahiro argues that, had he not acted in this way, they would all be dead by now, and the need to continue with the escape plan is still present. Argo tries to reason with Shu, but Shu attacks him to extract his emptiness. Afterwards, the former president tries to hide from Shu and the others, but Inori, acting strangely, stops her. Inori hits her with a crystal spear. Later, we also see Kato, who, together with the teacher, manages to revive someone who appears to be Guy. After this, Shu goes to a guard post where some students are not performing their duties properly. Upon witnessing this, Shu threatens to destroy their voids, and Yahiro warns him about the possible negative consequences of this approach. Yahiro fears that the students will develop resentment towards Shu, but Shu believes that this is the only way to impose discipline. In the midst of the situation, Inori has a flashback of what happened and how she is losing control, taking actions that go against her wishes. Also, because of the incident, Arisa is frightened and, while in her room, she receives a call on her mobile phone. During the conversation, she shares the situation at school with the person on the other end of the line. However, Arisa is discovered by the bully who was watching her. To deal with the situation, the girl flirts with the bully, managing to win his favor and using him to send a message to all the students. In the message, she reveals the consequences of destroying the voids, which causes many students to turn against Shu, believing that she has been lying to them. Meanwhile, the world's major powers are meeting, discussing how to deal with the threat posed by Japan to the rest of the world. They conclude that intervention and action are needed. After that, Yahiro approaches Arisa, who is pointed out as the main suspect in spreading the rumor. During the conversation, Arisa advises Yahiro not to trust others, especially Inori, and tells her about the attack he suffered from her. Meanwhile, Inori shares with Shu details about the attack and how she feels she is experiencing changes in her personality. Shu promises that he will always protect her, at which point, Yahiro joins them. Yahiro informs Shu about the attack perpetrated by Inori, insisting that she must be tried and punished. However, Shu chooses to defend Inori and accuses Yahiro of withholding information about the voids. After threatening Inori with Inori's sword, he forces Yahiro to retreat and demotes him to the lowest rank. After that, Arisa meets the thug, and it seems that he is using intimate favors as a form of payment to obtain information about the escape plan from the quarantine area. The boy provides details about the date, time, and exact location of the operation. Arisa intends to use this information to challenge Shu's leadership. So the day of the escape arrives, and the students head for one of the ramparts. However, it seems that rumors of a coup attempt have begun to circulate among the students. Despite the preparations, the situation is still being closely monitored by Kato, and it seems that measures are being devised against Shu. Shu and the group arrive at the designated attack site, and the military mechs quickly begin their pursuit. Shu gives the order to attack, with the apparent cooperation of Arisa. Despite his efforts, the mecha respond by firing indiscriminately, resulting in the deaths of several students and distracting the group. Shu, using Inori's vacuum, advances and effectively defeats several mecha. The strategy is to reach a control tower that operates all the mecha in the area. Shu advances towards it, facing multiple mechas along the way, and finally, with the help of a companion's void, manages to reach the tower. Using a sword, he destroys the control center, disabling all the mechs and clearing the way for the escape of the students from the quarantine area. With the successful escape, the former president's plan is unleashed, and all the students point guns at Shu, pushing Inori away to prevent her from intervening. Subsequently, Sauda pushes Shu into a crater, accusing him of using them as tools. At this point, Inori tries to run towards Shu, but suddenly, a void sword pierces her. Then, a number of governmental patrons arrive on the scene, revealing that the man responsible for the situation is none other than Guy, who has been resurrected by the military forces and is now significantly changed. Guy approaches Shu, who is stunned by the revelation, and with a single blow amputates the arm that held the power of the key. Guy then snatches the power from Shu, causing Shu to fall in shock at the events. Later, the global authorities took the decision to eliminate Japan in order to eradicate the virus problem. Consequently, they sent fighter planes with the intention of bombing Tokyo with chemical weapons. Realizing the situation, Guy harnessed the king's power to unite all the students' void, creating a weapon which he used to neutralize the warheads. However, this act resulted in the destruction of the weapon, leading to the loss of several students. Despite attempts by Ias and others to communicate with Guy, he was no longer the person they used to know. Guy threatened them with death if they did not join him. Faced with this situation, Yahiro refused to back Guy and chose to help Tsugumi and his companions escape by destroying the nearby mecha and confronting Guy directly. However, Yan was defeated by the other robots, and Arisa, protecting Guy with her void, revealed that it was she who provided the information about the location of the student's attack. Taking advantage of the distraction caused by Yan, Inori managed to escape with Shu. Subsequently, Guy used his power to destroy government fleets and issued a worldwide communique, threatening all nations with destruction via the Leucocyte satellites should they attempt to attack Tokyo again or come close. The military forces then organize a search team to locate Inori. The reason behind this is that Yu intends to use her again to reunite with Mana, even planning a marriage with Guy. However, Inori goes into hiding while searching for supplies to keep herself alive. Later, Haruka confesses that she collaborated with the military to free her son from the weight of the key's power. Later, Inori meets Shu and tries to feed him, but he is deeply affected by everything that has happened. At that moment, the military group to which Arisa belongs finds Shu and Inori, and as they are about to attack them, a limousine arrives with armed men who shoot at the soldiers. Arisa intervenes to stop them when he recognizes his father in the vehicle. The old man gets out of the car and berates Arisa for supporting Guy, arguing that the boy she fell in love with no longer exists. He also confronts the military, who explain that their target is Inori, not Shu. Hearing this, the old man decides to attack the military with his katana, killing 2 of them. He then attacks Arisa, as he believes her actions dishonor the family. Before he can hurt her, Arisa shoots him, killing him. Meanwhile, Inori tries to escape when she realizes that she is wanted, but a group of hooligans surrounds her and try to kidnap her. Witnessing this, Inori again loses control and kills the attackers. She then approaches Shu and hugs him, but again loses control and engages in inappropriate behavior. Shu orders her to stop, and she returns to normal. Later, as she arrives, Inori has a vision in which she apparently sees Mana. At that moment, it is revealed that Mana has been manipulating Inori's behavior. Mana informs Inori that she is about to take full control of her body, and her first act will be to murder Shu. Realizing this, Inori decides to walk away from Shu and, before leaving, gives him an emotional kiss after putting him to sleep to prevent him from stopping her. She heads off to surrender to Arisa's military group, but not before activating her berserker mode and confronting the mecha. In the midst of the battle, Inori reflects on her genuine feelings for Shu, despite being created to house Mana. She decides to protect him with her life. However, she is captured by an arrow from Guy, who immobilizes her. Upon awakening, Shu realizes that Inori is gone and decides to do everything he can to get her back. After the tumultuous events between Guy and Shu, Haruka makes the decision to put an end to Kato's plans, which involves eliminating Mana. However, when she arrives at the place where Mana is supposed to be, she discovers that she is not there. At that moment, Kato appears and reveals that Mana was never present. In addition, Kato confesses to being responsible for the death of Shu's father and then shoots Haruka. Later, Arisa is patrolling the area with her squad when she is surprised by Shu from behind. Shu forces her to reveal Inori's location and, at that precise moment, a communique begins to be transmitted through Arisa's phone. The communique alerts the entire military that Shu's mother has escaped and stolen a top-security briefcase. In response, Shu pressures Arisa to take him in search of his mother. As a condition, Arisa agrees to reveal Guy's plans in exchange for Shu telling him where Inori is. Later, Haruka arrives at Arisa's father's mansion, now under the direction of a woman named Kirachi, as Arisa's father has passed away. Kirachi informs Haruka of the old man's death and, in turn, Haruka shares her own story, explaining how she escaped and tried to stop Kato's plans, including the elimination of Mana. The revelation surprises Kirachi, as Mana turns out to be his daughter. Haruka emphasizes that Shu, consequently, is also Mana's brother. However, Haruka clarifies that Shu is not her biological son, but that she took on the role of stepmother after marrying Shu's father. Despite this relationship, they always maintained a certain distance. Later, Makoto, determined to capture Haruka, manages to locate her parade and shows up with a group of people at the site. At first glance, these people act as if they are looking for vaccines for the virus, which lowers the guard of Kirachi's group. However, it turns out to be a ruse, as Makoto and his guards open fire on everyone in the place. Despite the ambush, Amogo manages to save Haruka and orders her to escape with Kirachi. As the two women flee, Amogo confronts Makoto and is killed in the confrontation. Despite the tragic event, Haruka and Kirachi manage to leave the scene alive and decide to seek help from another group. On the way, Kirachi discovers the stolen briefcase and questions Haruka about its contents. Haruka reveals that the briefcase contains a void genome, the device with the king's power. Later, upon arriving at Aice's group and others, Argo informs the girls about Amogo's death. Haruka and Aice have a conversation about the void genome, and Haruka explains how it can react allergically and destroy itself if used by an incompatible person. Despite the possibility that Shu may not be able to handle it, Haruka hesitates to give it to her again to prevent her son from suffering further. However, the base is attacked by mecha controlled by Makoto. Shu, on his way with Arisa, jumps out of the car to go help his mother. As they try to escape, Aice suggests that Haruka use the void genome in her to stop the mecha. Makoto interrupts the process and reveals his plans to take over the void genome due to his fascination with its power. Aice tries to retrieve the device, but Makoto stops him. After a series of events, the void genome falls and Shu, against his mother's warnings, picks it up. Despite attempts to stop him, Shu decides to inject himself with the void genome to regain the king's power. In doing so, Shu's right arm, which had previously severed him, crystallizes with green veins, manifesting his own void. This new power allows him to extract in similar voids, use them at maximum capacity and power, and absorb the virus from people. Using his friend's voids, Shu defeats the mechas and stops Makoto from attempting to run him over with a truck. Finally, Shu uses his new void to destroy Makoto's soul and cure Saoda's illness, putting an end to the virus once and for all. Everything that has happened is reported to Guy by Kato. However, Guy considers the current priority to be the resurgence of Mana, who is increasingly taking control of Inori's body, which is tied up in the military base. Subsequently, Guy issues a new worldwide communique, informing all nations that, due to his numerous attack attempts in recent days, he has decided to put an end to humanity. In the communique, he announces the date on which he will begin his attacks. Shu and the other insurgents devise strategies to stop Guy. At that moment, Shibungi joins them to explain Guy's plans, which include spreading the apocalyptic virus globally in order to eradicate every living thing on the planet. He also gives Shu a diary that Guy gave him, belonging to Shu's father. Guy sent the diary to Shu with the intention of revealing the truth about his progenitor. Kato shares with Guy the story of how he met Shu's father, Kurasu, during his university days. Initially, Kato was an antisocial person, but his life changed when he met Kurasu, a fervent admirer of his research. As they collaborated, they developed a deep friendship. One day, Kato discovered Kurasu with what appeared to be Shu's real mother, and when she became pregnant, they married and moved to the place where the apocalyptic rock fell. The rock, discovered by Mana, led Kato and Kurasu to conduct joint investigations. In the process, Yu appeared before them, revealing his purpose to annihilate humanity in order to create a new world with Mana. Shu's real mother was infected by the apocalyptic virus during pregnancy, and Mana had chosen her as his mate to repopulate the world. Yu allowed Shu to live until her mother passed away during childbirth. Kurasu, upon learning of Yu's plans, opposed them, and Yu tried to convince Kato to join his cause. Eventually, Kato helped and began to collaborate with Yu. The two conducted experiments on children to find the ideal match for Mana, and Guy was one of these children, who managed to escape and was later found by Mana and Shu near the sea. Elsewhere, Haruka examines Shu, recording her past with the boy's father, Kurasu. Haruka joined Kurasu's research group, and as they worked together, she fell in love with his dedication to virus research, developing an affection for him. Eventually, he decided to marry, and Haruka communicated his decision to Kato, his older brother, who disagreed with the relationship. Despite Kato's disapproval, Haruka told him that she would marry Kurasu anyway. The situation changed on the day of the virus outbreak. Haruka was in a church with Mana, waiting for Kurasu. Meanwhile, Kato infiltrated Kurasu's office in search of the progress of the virus research. He found Kurasu's diary, which detailed the discovery of the empty genome and how he could stop the virus. Kurasu arrived, and after an argument, Kato tried to convince him to join Yu and him, but Kurasu refused to share his findings. Enraged, Kato threatened him and, when he did not give in, murdered him and stole his research. In the present, Shu has completed the medical examinations. Haruka warns him about the dangers of absorbing the virus and informs him that it may be too late to save Inori, as Mana is inside her and will eventually possess her completely. Despite the warnings, Shu refuses to give up and decides to rescue Inori. Haruka hugs him and cries, then is told that the helicopter is about to take off. Before leaving, Shu tries to return the voids to his friends, but Yahiro refuses, telling him that they have all decided that he will use their voids on the mission. After an emotional moment with Sauda, Shu embarks on the mission to rescue Inori and stop Guy. After receiving notification that the United Nations has deployed an army to attack him, Guy prepares for the confrontation. Shu and the others join the attack, and preparations to defeat Guy begin. As they prepare, Shu meets Ais, who asks for his help in climbing his mecha. Shu helps her and compliments her appearance, causing Ais to blush. During the conversation, Ais asks Shu if he would be able to face Guy if given the chance. Shu assures her that he would not hesitate to do so and apologizes for using his null against him. Ais assures him that it was his choice to give him the void and hopes that it will be of use to him. The attack on the military base begins with helicopters deploying mecha. Guy uses Eris's voids and others to create a giant bow that fires energy arrows, destroying part of the enemy fleet. Meanwhile, Shu and his group manage to infiltrate the base. Tsugumi uses a hacking program developed by Haruka to disable enemy mechanics, and the army ships join the battle. Shu advances with Sauda's vacuum and, after separating from the group, heads off to save Inori. Guy, using the voids of Erisa and others, crystallizes Inori to emerge as Mana. Before losing consciousness, Inori thanks Shu for saving her and expresses her happiness at meeting him. Guy does not understand the connection between Shu and Inori, but she explains that Shu showed her the beauty and sadness of the world, despite her downfalls and sufferings. Although Inori is a vessel for Mana, she falls completely in love with Shu. As Shu's team rushes to reach Inori, the military retakes control of the base. Inori is consumed by the crystal as she sings the usual song for Shu, who hears her and locates her position. Yu appears and confronts Shu, revealing his role as an alien envoy to create a new world. He proposes to Shu to join with Mana to create a new race, but Shu rejects the offer. Yu decides to annihilate Shu and use his genome power to attack him with the voids of his minions. Shu defends himself by dodging and counter-attacking with Yahiro's void. As the others try to move forward to help Shu, Yan stops them. Shu continues to confront Yu, who berates him for rejecting Mana. Shu manages to defeat Yu, but when he reaches Guy and Inori, he discovers that it is too late. Guy has completed the crystallization process and Mana has resurfaced, marking the beginning of the apocalypse. Elsewhere, the rebellion group continues its efforts to reach Shu. Ais confronts Yun and his modified mecha, while Tsugumi struggles to regain control of the base, constantly being hindered by Kenji, who has allied himself with the military. Mana, upon awakening, runs to Shu and begins to despise Inori, expressing relief at being freed from what she considers a monster. Upon hearing this, Shu becomes enraged and shoves Mana, defending Inori and proclaiming that she is not a monster. In response, Mana, furious at Shu's rejection, is about to attack him, but Guy intervenes, stopping her and announcing that he will deal with Shu. Guy uses his genome to extract the void from Mana and modify the environment. Mana threatens Shu, warning him that he will pay dearly for rejecting her. She initiates a ritual that triggers the deactivation of the mecha and the spread of the apocalyptic virus across the world. Thousands of people turn into crystals and die, while Guy proclaims that this marks the true apocalypse of humanity. He then attacks Shu with his sword, who fights back with his own power. Meanwhile, Ais and the others are brutally attacked by Yan. Argo uses a machine gun to allow Ais to escape, but Yan's mecha, powered by void energy, begins to be infected by the apocalyptic virus. Shu continues his confrontation with Guy, trying to reason with him, but Guy, transformed and resentful, criticizes Shu for rejecting Mana. Guy hears Shu with his sword, and elsewhere, Haruka confronts Kato, threatening him with a gun. Back in the fight, Guy is about to kill Shu, who thinks about giving up, but Inori's voice is heard through a crystal rose left behind before he dies. Inori encourages Shu to keep fighting, expressing her belief in him. Inori's flower connects with Shu, stopping Mana's attack and deactivating Yan's mecha. Shibungi confronts and kills Kenji, allowing Tsugumi to regain control. Shu summons Inori's sword, releasing its full power, while Ais and Tsugumi manage to destroy Yan's mecha. Shu charges his sword with the combined force of his and Inori's power, dealing a final blow to Guy. He is transported inside, where Shu meets the real Guy. Guy reveals that he has always been in love with Mana and asks Shu to save Inori and free Mana from Yu's control by giving her his void genome. Upon returning, Shu finds Inori, who has managed to control Mana. However, Inori is severely affected by the apocalyptic virus. Shu makes a decision and, using the union of the two genomes, absorbs the virus from the people and voids them all. The building begins to collapse, forcing his companions to escape. Shu continues to absorb the virus and eventually becomes a crystal alongside Inori. In an unexpected twist, Shu has a vision where Inori hands him a red thread, breaking his crystal and releasing him. However, this causes Inori to disappear, and the building collapses, apparently taking Shu with it. Meanwhile, his friends regret not being able to help him. The story jumps 5 years into the future, where Shu's friends are preparing for a dinner party. Surprisingly, Shu arrives, apparently undead but blind. He sits on a bench while listening to the songs Inori used to sing, marking the end of Guilty Crown.